Hi, this is my video of my first trip to, not my first trip, my trip to Thailand, which was a trip to Bangkok in Thailand, which was a very disastrous trip. And that's what I want to make my video about, which is going to come very soon. But this is just an introduction. It's taken me a whole year to actually do this video, so I've done nothing for a whole year since October 24, and now it's November 2025, so it's been a whole year that has gone by. And just as a form of introduction, if you've listened to my previous videos, I suffer from a condition which causes iron overload. The technical word is hemochromatosis. And the best cure for hemochromatosis is to donate blood or have a bloodletting. But unfortunately, in New Zealand, my hematologist won't allow me to have bloodletting done because of my heart condition. And the New Zealand blood donation places won't take my blood either because of my heart condition. So I'm kind of like between a rock and a hard place. So I decided, in my great wisdom, to go to Thailand. Hopefully they'll be a little bit more lenient about bloodletting. And so I've decided to do a video about that, and my previous video was about the hotel I stayed in. So if you want to get a good impression of the hotel I stayed in, have a look at my previous video, which I forget what episode that is, 8 or 9, can't remember. And this here is Bob. He's feeling quite good at the moment. He wants to watch, and my cat Tinkerbell finds my videos very boring, so she's fallen asleep. And that's, how do I do this? That's her there, okay? So she's not interested. And so this is just my introduction. I will now start I will now start the video proper, okay? Thanks very much. Bye. Hi. Welcome to everybody who's watching this. Probably not many. But I thought I'd do a video of my disastrous trip to Bangkok, Thailand. So this is the official video of that trip. But unfortunately, I couldn't remember every little thing that happened. So I decided to write down some notes. And I've written down these notes. Only 9 pages of notes, so this could be a long video. If it does turn out to be a very long video, I have to not bump the table. If it turns out to be a very long video, I'll divide it up into parts. So officially, this is part 1. I don't know how many more parts there will be. But anyway, the first thing I did was get a trip to Auckland Airport. And my friend John, he took me in his car. But I'll tell you that later. But when I got to the airport, I decided to have a McDonald's burger with no chips, of course. Don't want to have anything bad for me. And a cup of coffee. But I was having trouble breathing, and I thought, oh no, don't tell me I'm going to be sick for this trip to Thailand. But I decided to try my asthma inhaler to see if that made any difference. So I took a couple of puffs on my inhaler, and it did make a difference. I suddenly was able to breathe properly. So that was a big relief. And what have I got in my notes? Oh yes, it was then that I remembered that John was still puffing on his vape machine, whatever you call it. And of course he knew that I was allergic to his smoking, even with a vape. And so he would drive along the motorway with both windows open, and he thought that would stop me from having any type of allergic effect, and so did I, for that matter. But in the airport, I started having trouble breathing, and I think that was because of his vaping. So once I took an inhaler, I felt a lot better. Now, the flight was okay. Air New Zealand, good airline. But I had specifically asked for a window seat so I could see everything that was going on. Well, I'm never going to do that again, because the medication that I'm on, and one of them is furosemide, and another one I can't remember the name of, makes me want to go to the toilet all the time. Pee, that is, not the other one. So I held on for as long as I possibly could. And eventually I just had to get up and go for a pee. And I had to ask the lady next to me to wake up the guy that was sitting in the aisle seat to let me out, because he was sprawled right out and I couldn't get past him. So she did that for me, woke him up, and he moved, and I was able to go have a pee. And of course, even when I came back, he'd fallen asleep again. I had to wake him up to get back to my window seat. Anyway, I only did that once. And then eventually we had a stopover in Singapore. And I'll just pause it here because I've got to look over the other side of the page. Okay. Right, I found page 7. I've obviously inserted this because I forgot about this part of my trip. My stopover in Singapore. Well, first of all, my Austrian friend had warned me that when you stop at the Singapore airport, you have to catch a train to the next connection plane. And I thought, what? Catch a train? That's unbelievable. So I hopped out off the plane into the Singapore airport, and I walked and walked and walked and walked, and I couldn't find wherever I had to go. And there weren't any information counters that I could go to and ask, where do I go for this connection? And of course, you have a limited amount of time, well, I did, to get from one plane to the next plane connection. So I was starting to get a bit panicky. And what happened next? I finally found a lady standing somewhere with a reasonable sort of uniform. So she looked official. So I asked her, how do I get to my plane to fly to Thailand? And she looked it up on her computer, because it didn't show it on the big boards that are showing where everything goes. And she says, oh, you're catching the to Thailand plane, and you have to walk way up there. And I looked up the corridor, and the corridor went forever, because it just got smaller and smaller in the distance. You have to walk right up there and go to the train station, and then catch the train to terminal number, I forget which number it was, 3 or something, and I was in 1, and then go to look at the board and find your flight number, blah, 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 to Thailand. So I did that, but it was a long, long walk. Good thing I didn't have gout at the time. And I have to pause it there because I have to look at my notes again. Okay, I'm back. I finally found the train station, and I hopped on the train. And, I first of all looked at the board, and I finally found my plane connection number. And so I hopped on the train to go to terminal, I forget what it was, 3, 4 or 5, I can't remember. And when I hopped on the train, I discovered there was no driver, because I happened to hop into the front carriage, but there was no driver. And I thought, wow, is this train just automatic? It was absolutely amazing and very quiet. and it took me to the next terminal, and I hopped off and looked at the board, and it told me to go to gate, I can't remember the number of the gate, but where my gate was way, 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 way up the end of the corridor. So it was another long walk to get to my gate. And I finally got to my gate, and what happened then? Oh, okay. So I finally caught the plane to Bangkok, Thailand. And I've written on the bottom, Ep2. What's Ep2 mean? Oh, I know. Please turn over. But actually, I'll have to pause it while I do that. Okay, I'm back to the beginning of page 1. This is going to be a long video. So finally I arrived in Bangkok, and I had decided to not take a taxi, which would have been much easier. I decided to catch a train, which is much cheaper than catching a taxi. So I went down to the railway station, which I think was downstairs, and I watched all the other people catching the train, and I watched them getting their tickets from what looked like an ATM machine, because I couldn't figure out how to do it. I finally watched enough people for long enough to actually figure out how to get a train ticket, which was cheap. And I had to look at the map to find out which station I was going to, because when I had looked at the advertisements for this particular hotel, it said that the train will take you right to the hotel, and then there's a special passageway or causeway to my particular hotel. So I thought, well, that's the best deal. Just catch a train, walk down the causeway, and I'll be in my hotel. Fantastic. As you can see, I've decided to interrupt this video with a little insert that I've put in a few days later. It's now the 27th of December. It's after Christmas, and I thought I'd just add this little bit because I thought I'd add the picture of the hotel that they advertise, which tempted me to pick this particular hotel. It took me ages to find the actual hotel again because I couldn't remember the name of it. But here is the picture, and you'll notice that the high-speed train pulls in on one side of the hotel, which I thought was great. But what I didn't realise, that even though I was put in a room on the other side of the hotel, on the other side of the hotel is another train line where all the diesel trains go up and down, plus there's a 4-lane highway just down below, and an intersection that I had to learn how to cross. And so I just thought I'd add this little bit. And you might have noticed I've changed my t-shirt, because I don't wear the same t-shirt all the way through Christmas. And my cat is still interested, and you'll notice that Bob is missing, because Bob had a serious accident, which, if you're interested, by the end of the video I will do a little clip of that as well. Okay, so back to the original video. Okay, bye. But when I got off the train at the appropriate station, I couldn't find my hotel anywhere, and the only way out of that particular spot was to go down a whole lot of stairs, which I didn't want to do with my baggage. And eventually I found an elevator that I could walk into and go down to the ground floor. So I took the elevator and went down to the ground floor, and I was still looking for the hotel, and I asked somebody nearby, where's I've forgotten the name of the hotel now, where's my particular hotel? And he says, well, that particular hotel is just across the road, across the diagonally across the intersection. And I thought, oh, how am I going to get to that? And so I ended up walking towards that hotel, but then I discovered that I was at the back of all the hotels instead of at the front. And somehow or other, I managed to find myself out at the intersection across to my hotel. And I thought, well, how the hell do I get across the diagonal crossing? Because this particular crossing, it wasn't just a 4-lane highway of cars, both ways, 4 lanes, but it was also a railway crossing. And not only that, the arms for the railway crossing would come down for the train. Well, one of them did, but the other one, a couple of guys had to drag their railway crossing arm out onto the road to stop all the cars from coming. So I decided that I was going to try and cross the road while the train was coming, because all the cars had to stop for the train. And I did actually manage to get across the crossing to the other side. And then I discovered that my particular hotel wasn't the one diagonally across, it was the one right where I was. And there was a whole lot of steps up to the lobby of this particular hotel. And I sort of had my suitcase, and I thought, oh, this is going to be hard. I'm not feeling well enough to drag my suitcase up all those steps. But fortunately for me, a very nice, porter, came running down the steps, and he offered to take my suitcase for me up to the lobby. I still had to walk up the steps, but at least I didn't have to carry the suitcase. And when I got to the top of the stairs and into the lobby, there was a very nice aquarium, which I thought I'd show you a picture of. So that's all. Have a look at the fish and then carry on with the video. Okay, bye. And I made it up to the lobby and I booked in, blah, blah, blah. And I've taken some photos of why I had so much trouble getting to this hotel. So that's what I'm going to do next, show you some photos. So I think I will stop it here. As you can see, this is the top of the elevator of the causeway. And the causeway or walkway goes right over the top of the intersection, so that you don't have to try and fight all the traffic to get across. But of course, what I didn't know was that a couple of months earlier, this particular walkway had caught fire. So they, instead of fixing it up, they have closed it all down so that nobody can walk across there anymore, which is a real shame. Okay. And then this is a picture of the bottom of the elevator. Both sides you can probably see. And there's a pool there with the fish inside it. And then we move on to a better view of both elevators from a distance. And the up and the down elevator. And that's the stairs. That's the very bottom. If you decide you don't want to use the elevator, you can use the stairs. Okay? So causeway. Well, despite staying in a room that had a train line on one side and a train line on the other side, and the high-speed train, whenever it pulled into the station outside my room, it sounded like a jet engine landing on the roof. And on the other side, I had diesel trains roaring along the line, and so it was kind of difficult to sleep on Wednesday night, but I managed it. And on Thursday I decided I would catch the bus and just try and see if I could find this international hospital that I wanted to go to for special treatment. So I walked across the intersection. I nearly got killed by some motorcyclists because It seems that in Bangkok anyway, the motorcyclists don't necessarily stay on the road, and sometimes they go down the opposite side of the road, and sometimes to save crossing an intersection, they veer across onto the footpath where I happen to be standing. But I managed to get across the road, across the whole intersection, and I walked along all the shops that were there, and of course then it started pouring with rain, which I hadn't really planned for, and I managed to, there were some shops that didn't have covers, so you sort of had to run across the space where there was no cover and get soaking wet from the rain. I managed to find a shop that actually sold, I think it was a 7-Eleven shop, that actually sold plastic raincoats, so you could put on a raincoat, and it was so flimsy and plastic that if it wasn't raining you could roll it up and put it in your pocket. So I bought one of those, and I tried to catch a bus in the right direction for this hospital I was going to, but it didn't seem to matter what I did, it seemed to be wrong. So I eventually discovered that the bus stop I was catching went the wrong way and I needed to go the other way. Anyway, I finally gave up and decided I'd get to the hospital a different way, maybe taxi. And so I walked all the way back to the hospital, back to the hotel, and I think I had a meal at the restaurant in the hotel. Well, I had one on Wednesday night and I had another one on Thursday night. And when I finished my quite nice meal, I noticed that a couple of tables over there was a man talking to a Thai lady, and he was obviously describing New Zealand, parts of New Zealand that I was familiar with. And so on my way out, I went over to him and said, "Oh, are you from New Zealand? Because I can hear you talking about New Zealand things." And he said, "Yeah, I am from New Zealand. Have a seat." And we ended up talking for, I don't know, quarter of an hour, half an hour. The poor Thai lady had to just sit and look at her phone, because a lot of Thai people can't really understand English. They can say a few words, but English is not their main language. So we talked for a while and we arranged to contact each other once we got back to New Zealand. And so I went and had another not very good sleep Thursday night. And on Friday I decided to order a taxi to take me to this international hospital that I wanted to go to. And the hospital was called Bumrungrad International Hospital. And that's the one I wanted to go to. So on Friday was my trip to the hospital. And I think already my video is getting too long. So I'll just finish off with one little point, and we'll call this part 1, and going to the hospital in Bumrungrad will be my part 2. Okay? I just thought I'd finish off this video with a little comment about Bob that you'll notice is not here. He had a very traumatic experience and he's now resting up. So I'll just show you what he's doing now. And I might have to put this on the other direction. There we go. There's Bob. He's having a rest on my footstool and he's not very happy. So I'll tell you more about Bob's experience in part 2. Okay? Alright, bye for now.